I'm standing in Borodyanka. It used to be a small one-street town. Now almost all the buildings are destroyed, as you can see here. So now we're at the scene where the war crime is committed. There was a woman, man, and their son living together in a small village. And then one day, the woman in her early 50s and their son were standing in the yard when Russian occupiers came and shot them dead. The father immediately joined the armed force of Ukraine, and their neighbors buried the bodies. The bodies have eventually been dug out, and now the investigation has begun for war crimes. My name is Asami Terajima. I'm a journalist with the Kyiv Independent. I used to be a political reporter, but now everyone's a war reporter. Even on the 24th of February, when I walked down the streets of Kiev, it's a Thursday night, so usually it's very vibrant. So there's lots of people, hanging out on the streets. I walked on this day on the streets, and there were no one. It was a ghost city. It's very quiet at night. You could feel that, life has, stopped for all of us in Ukraine, and it really has, I grew up in Ukraine. I lived here for over 12 years. So Ukraine has been my home, and Ukrainian people have been, have been treating me as one of their own since day one, and I want to give back to them, and the least I can do is report what's happening here. I stayed in Kiev for about a week since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. At the time, there was this high tension about this 40-mile Russian column approaching the capital. So I was advised to leave before, we didn't know what's going to happen. We're doing our best to cover Russia's war in Ukraine because we need to make sure that Russia is held accountable for all the war crimes that it's committing in Ukraine. We need to make sure that Russia is punished for every single Ukrainian blood that is spilled on our land.
Es ist der erste Krieg für mich. Ich habe noch nie in meinem Leben einen Krieg erlebt. Jeder Tag ist in irgendeiner Form neu und auch extrem, weil man jeden Tag mit menschlichen Schicksalen konfrontiert ist, die krass sind, die einfach eine Dimension haben, die ich bisher nicht kannte in meinem Leben. Ich habe noch nie in meinem Leben in solche Gesichter geschaut. Das sind Geschichten gewesen, die man sich eben aus einem Land wie der Ukraine nicht vorstellen kann oder vorstellen konnte vor ein paar Wochen. Leben unter den zerbombten Trümmern des eigenen Hauses. Es gibt kein Wasser mehr, es gibt keine Elektrizität mehr. Man ist von der Welt abgeschnitten, weil man über Tage, über Wochen kein Internet hat. Man hat jeden Tag Freunde, Verwandte, die man verliert, und hat ständig diese Sorge, dass die russischen Truppen auch ins eigene Haus kommen und dort eben einmarschieren. Das sind so erstmal so die menschliche, die emotionale Seite, die ganz neu für mich ist und die natürlich auch in irgendeiner Form immer eine Herausforderung ist.
So I arrived in the western city of Lviv yesterday at midnight. Today I'm just getting my gears, getting ready to go back to Kiev. So I just borrowed the helmet and a body vest so that I can go to Kiev Oblast and areas once occupied by the Russians. Staying neutral and objective in this war is, of course, difficult for local journalists like us because, the war is affecting us, and for many of us, our family are in danger because they still remain in regions where Russia could potentially carry out its military activity or and but also like nowhere in Ukraine is safe. So it's about 8 a.m. and we're back in Kyiv. I'm going to head back to my apartment, and it was about 9 hours of journey, but it's really comfortable. These beds are nice, and yeah, I had a really good night of sleep. That is my apartment right there. It's important for us to, stay strong and to stay, emotionally calm, while even though this is a big challenge, including for me, because what I'm seeing right now, I sometimes I just don't have the words to explain, because these atrocities of Russia's war are just indescribable, and I will never forgive what I'm seeing.
As a war reporter for television, you're not a journalist for the written media. That means you have to be very close to the things. You have to be very close to the front line if you want the good pictures. You have to have good sense of humor, because otherwise you will become mad of what's going usually in a war, because there is no war without casualties, and you have in some way to open your mind, in some way you have to close your mind, not to be touched by seeing what you are seeing usually at the war. Obviously you have also to be very careful, because it's happened. Many of my colleagues unfortunately lost their lives. Even in Bucharest, one of the British colleagues was killed just in the time trying to make a piece to camera, stand up, and when they switched the light, a sniper was very precise on his head, unfortunately. I have to say that I didn't do my job in a time of NATO attack to Serbia. I was sitting at home and waiting to be finished, because I was fully aware that as a journalist or camera operator or producer, I can't be objective in this war. That means, yes, I understand that Ukrainian colleagues in this case have to be sometimes journalists, sometimes patriotic workers.
This has been my home ever since I can remember, so I'm very attached to it, and coming back here after months in Lviv, it made me feel like I can't even describe this feeling. It's surreal, because I didn't think that I can come back so soon, and I didn't know at the time, so it was very difficult for me to leave Kiev. And now that I'm back here, I just feel like I don't want to go anywhere, and I want to stay here and do my job. I saw that Russia was sharing various cities, the cities that I recognized because I've been there, including I saw like Kiev was also being attacked, and I wanted to directly stop Russia from attacking, but this is impossible. No one can do that. It's only in the hands of one man, and that's Russian dictator Vladimir Putin.
Also wir arbeiten ja selbst immer wieder mit Ukrainerinnen und Ukrainern zusammen, die uns zum Beispiel für ein paar Tage bei Übersetzungen helfen oder die uns dann auch mal einen Tag irgendwohin mitnehmen. Und das ist schon unvorstellbar. Also als deutscher Journalist, wenn ich mir vorstelle, in meinem Land ist Krieg und ich bin quasi die ganze Zeit zwischen der Sorge und der Angst um meine Freunde und Verwandte im ganzen Land. Und auf der anderen Seite habe ich noch diesen Job zu tun, quasi so genau, so präzise wie möglich das zu berichten, was in diesem Land abgeht. Das ist nicht vergleichbar mit allem, was hier Korrespondenten aus dem Ausland machen müssen. Aber man muss sich trotzdem bewusst sein, dass wir in diesem Krieg vor allem die ukrainische Seite erleben und es sehr, sehr viel gibt, was im Dunkeln liegt, was wir nicht sehen.
We're going to begin, though, with the situation in Bucha up here. We're going to start with CNN's Frederick Pleiken and the horror he found there. We do want to warn you, some of the images you're about to see are graphic.
Images published shortly after Russian forces left Bucha show many corpses lying in the streets.
The bodies that I saw were very raw, and I saw a lot of skin, so I think they were very wicked. And some of the bodies I saw were also burnt. This used to be someone's house, and now it's completely destroyed. I've been to Bucha. I've spent a lot of time in my childhood and as a teenager in Bucha, because a lot of my tennis trainings were in there. So this is a city that I have made many memories in, and I just have to see it with my own eyes, because what I saw in Bucha and what I saw in Borodyanka, I feel like I still haven't been able to process it, because I see these photos and it's hard for me to believe that this is the reality. And even though I know it is, so I have to see it with my own eyes to sink all the photos and all the words that I read about the atrocities and the war crimes and clear evidence of genocide that Russia has committed in Ukraine.